Hey everyone, I'm Katie Simpson from 2 blocks from the White House. The U.S. Supreme Court is about to make some really significant decisions that could have an impact on the daily lives of millions of people in the United States. On this week's episode, we take a closer look at the case around birthright citizenship and the question of who gets to be an American in the time of Donald Trump. Have a listen.
This next order relates to the definition of birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment of the United States.
That's a good one. Birthright. That's a big one.
What about that one in the court? That one is likely to be.
Could be. I think we have good grounds, but you could be right. I mean, you'll find out. It's ridiculous. We're the only country in the world that does this with birthright, as you know.
That was Donald Trump, U.S. president, on the very first day of his second term, signing an executive order limiting birthright citizenship.
Oh, man, I remember that day well. What a stack of EOs there were on the desk that day, hey? I think we should say right off the bat, it also began his second term with a falsehood. The U.S. is not the only country with birthright citizenship, and maybe we can talk a bit more about that later. Hello, Canada, by the way. But with that stroke of a pen on that day, Donald Trump put a long-standing piece of U.S. constitutional law into legal limbo.
And there were immediately legal challenges to that executive order, and it's been on hold essentially ever since. Now the Supreme Court is getting ready to make a decision on that case. As of now, this is, of course, Tuesday afternoon. We have yet to hear a ruling, but it should come down in the coming days.
This policy is a key part of his administration's immigration agenda, and Donald Trump is clearly invested in what the court decides. He made history back in April when the court heard oral arguments in this case. He showed up and sat in the front row. He is the first president to ever do that. So on this week's episode, we are asking, will the Supreme Court allow Trump to end birthright citizenship? I'm Katie Simpson.
I'm Paul Hunter.
And I'm Willy Lowry. We're CBC's Washington correspondents. You guessed it, 2 blocks from the White House.
Okay, first question goes to Willy.
Lucky me.
Hey, thank God.
I need you to walk us through what is birthright citizenship and how far does it go back here in the U.S.?
How much time do we have?
Begin. Go.
At its core, it is essentially exactly what it sounds like. It is the right that every person born in this country, barring very few exceptions, is a citizen of the United States. Now, let's go back a little bit in time to 1868, shortly after the, of course, American Civil War. The 14th Amendment was added to the Constitution, and it said in just 28 words, and I'm going to read them because each one is important here, quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Essentially, for the preceding 150 some odd years, I'm bad at math, as Paul knows, that has been the law of the land. There have been challenges, and it has been upheld by the Supreme Court. And it really kind of goes to the very foundation of what is this country? What does it mean to be an American, and who is an American? And Trump is essentially challenging all of that. And I want to play a clip from Ronald Reagan's last speech as president, because I really think it invokes the kind of essence of birthright and the essence of what, for generations, this country was, which was a place of immigrants and a place where people went to try and live out and fulfill their dreams. So let's take a listen.
You can go to live in Germany or Turkey or Japan, but you cannot become a German, a Turk, or Japanese. But anyone from any corner of the earth can come to live in America and become an American.
But can they?
Well, it's interesting, right? I mean, it's also, I think what you're saying is it's kind of the brand of America, isn't it?
It has been.
It has been. And growing up, you always, well, if you're born in this country, then you are ipso facto, automatically you are an American, and that's what's being called into question here. It's really turning all of that on its ear, what Trump is trying to do.
What is the argument here from the Trump administration and why they want to go this way?
Look at us, eh? 3 journalists from Canada talking about U.S. constitutional law.
Oh.
What can go wrong? Nothing, nothing. Look, what Trump critics say it's because he wants a white America, that this is white nationalism from Donald Trump dressed up as a constitutional argument. I mean, setting aside the white America claim by Trump critics, in a sense, what is behind this is that he wants to take away a means by which non-Americans can establish themselves in this country, i.e. have a child while standing somewhere in America, lying down, as it were, by altering birthright citizenship, by changing what it means to allow to become an American. You, in Trump's view, you disincentivize illegal migration, which has been like a pillar of what Trump's political life has been about from the get-go, right? How to stop that flow of undocumented migrants across the border. Well, give them one less reason to come here, because if you're coming here and to have a child, and as some would put it, Trump included, have anchor babies, as they're derisively labeled sometimes. If you take away that, then that's going to slow. Forget the wall for a second. That gives one less reason to come here, right? And this has been a long-standing effort of Trump. So that's part of it. And another part of it is, from Trump's perspective, to underline that this is a nation of laws. And we have laws for a reason, right? But there's something else going on here. And we saw that in the clip that you played off the top, Katie. The Inauguration Day in 2025, when he signed that stack of executive orders, right? This is Trump testing the limits of executive power, right? How far can he go in changing this country and doing the things that he wants to do with this country and in this country, right? This country, get back to foundational aspects of this country, it's about three things, right? It's Congress, people who make the laws, it's the judiciary, right, who interpret them, and it's the executive, or the president. And what is being clear from the get-go, certainly in this administration, is that Trump wants to, with all these EOs, 26 on the first day, all kinds more ever since, Trump is testing. How far can he go? And this is, on the one hand, it's like putting up barriers to people coming here and having babies and calling them Americans all of a sudden. But at the same time, it's also testing the limits of executive power. How far can he go as president? So that's what's going on here.
And
It's kind of like an 18-month power grab, and seeing what and if the courts will stop
knowing
him.
all the while that it'll be challenged, as this one was, and it'll go to the Supreme Court. Win some, lose some.
And you
If
heard
win-
him in that exchange say, yeah, maybe it'll go to the court.
Exactly.
Maybe I'll win.
Yeah.
And-
he expects it to. Right?
At the same time, it gets to one of the core promises he made to voters, which in America promises to change immigration policy in the U.S. were a key platform of his election campaign and part of the reason why he got elected. Depending on which part of the country you go to, people are very strongly opposed to what happened over the Biden years. Now, Donald Trump, when he talks about it, he exaggerates the numbers, but there was an increase in the number of people crossing illegally, whether it's to seek asylum or to start a new life, whatever it was, crossing illegally into the United States during those Biden years. There was a huge influx because during the Trump administration, they sent out those signals locking, suggesting that we want this to stop. It is very popular among Republicans, particularly in southern U.S. states where Donald Trump has done traditionally very well, these border communities. And it is part of that core promise, and this is just another plank to that.
As Trump would also underline, sorry, Willie, this is about jobs. And that is one of his stated rationales for blocking undocumented migrants coming here, because they're taking American jobs. And so that also goes to the not small part of America, Katie, that you're talking about, that says, they, making air quotes here, are taking our jobs. And it plays very well for people who support Trump. Right?
I would argue that there is a general consensus among Republicans and Democrats that the immigration system is somewhat broken and that reforms are needed. It just shows you kind of the level of dysfunction within this country, within this government, that they are incapable of making those reforms.
It requires big, significant change from Congress, right? Both as you mentioned, Willie, both Democrats and Republicans will acknowledge very publicly that the immigration system that exists in America needs a major overhaul. It's just a very dramatic, differently picture which way to do it. Republicans and under Donald Trump have one vision, and Democrats under, I don't know who the Democrats are under in this moment.
That's a good question.
I think that's probably an entire
episode.
podcast episode.
Tune in next week.
But a very different approach here. And when Americans voted in 2024, this was a key plank for Donald Trump, and they voted for what Donald Trump is moving forward with. Now, is challenging birthright citizenship something that's been precedent for 150 odd years? I'm not good at math either. That's why we're all here. None of us are good at math.
It's true.
That might be considered by some even who support Trump as extreme, but at the same time, Donald Trump said he was going to do these things, and he does like to challenge precedent, challenge authority, and this is his brand and his style.
Absolutely. And as you said, he said he wanted to do these things, and he did them with the stroke of a pen. And now I guess it's all up to the courts whether or not what he wants to do can actually materialize. Let's talk a little bit about what's at stake, Katie. Who would be most affected by this decision?
So on a broad level, it sort of poses the question, who gets to be an American? It's going to define who gets to be an American. In terms of actual numbers and people, there's approximately, according to court documents that were submitted as part of the court challenge, about 255,000 babies are born in the U.S. That is the estimate that qualify for birthright citizenship. In terms of their parents are not here legally, or their parents are on visitor visas, those kinds of things. Parents are possibly on student visas. It's a cross section of the American population, and it's roughly, according to these documents, about 255,000 babies a year. Now, is that maybe different over the past 12 months or 18 months since Donald Trump signed that executive order because people are not crossing illegally into the United States like they were in the previous 18 months?
I believe his words are zero.
Yeah. So perhaps we could do an entire other episode on that where we do a fact check there. But to sort of put a human face on it, in this case, in the court case, it's called Trump versus Barbara. Barbara is a name that was given to a woman who was in the United States seeking asylum. And she found out she was pregnant, and while she was seeking asylum, is concerned about, okay, so what does this mean for my baby? And it's one of several people coming forward. Another story like that is a woman named Lily. A lot of the names are not accurate.
They're pseudonyms to protect them, basically, from pushback from.
Afraid that they're going to get doxxed, they're going to be identified, that it could put their cases in jeopardy, because I imagine that the Trump administration is not looking kindly on the people who are challenging these cases. They're challenging a policy that Donald Trump wants to implement. Have a listen here. This is Lily, who is a Ukrainian refugee.
My baby deserves the citizenship. He shouldn't be stateless. My baby didn't change a country, and he shouldn't be guilty for it that he was born in the United States.
The executive order is supposed to take effect about in late February, about 30 days after Trump originally signed it in late January. And so the question is, Lily's baby, Lily's son, does it retroactively apply? The actual families that could have children who are stateless if the Trump administration is successful in this. And then take a step back. This, again, is if the Trump administration is successful. And that's a big if, because I know we're going to talk about this in a minute, but I know a lot of the legal scholars are expecting the Trump administration to lose this case. But if the Trump administration wins this case, and the court decides that this very simple 28-word amendment, which is in very plain, clean language, easy to understand.
It really is.
If the courts decide that that is not the interpretation, what else can the Trump administration challenge? One example that I heard a legal analyst put forward is, well, can Trump challenge the amendment that says he can only run twice to be president? Does he challenge other amendments? What about the 19th Amendment, that women have the right to vote? Pick an amendment.
That gets back to testing executive power, though, doesn't it? How far can he go?
Before we move on, I just want to bring up, pregnancy is by itself a pretty stressful experience. I have friends who are from not here. They're pregnant, and they're incredibly anxious about what this will mean for their child. And it's just, that's something that is being copy and pasted across this country right now, where you have these people who are in limbo, already anxious about the giving birth, to be fair, away probably from their extended family in this foreign land, but under the, at least formally, certainty that their child will become an American, will have a state. And now all of a sudden, that's kind of in jeopardy.
Yeah, I know Canadians who are in the United States on work visas, living their lives here, working their jobs, and they're concerned, okay, like if we have more children, what does this mean for them? Are they going to have one child that's an American citizen and then one that, what happens to the fate of the other and the citizenship there? In the United States, there are a lot of undocumented people as well. People who are in the United States right now who are undocumented as they work their way through the legal system trying to seek asylum or whatever the situation may be. What happens to those kids?
So where are we at, Willy? I mean, it's a mug's game in any level of the court system to listen to the justices in this case and guess where their minds are at. And also, colloquially, it's, people say it's Trump's court, right? It is majority conservative.
He's got
three justices appointed by Trump. But what's your take on where the justices seem to be in terms of responding to Trump's argument here?
The general, as Katie alluded to, legal consensus is that this probably will not pass, that the justices will reject it. The kind of betting odds is it's probably going to be 7-2 against 6-3 maybe. But the questions were pretty probing and pretty hard. They really challenged the government on a lot of the kind of legality and reasoning behind this EO. But I think the mere fact that they're hearing it shows you where this country is, shows you the influence that Trump has. And as we saw earlier this year with the rejection of the tariff case, it kind of sent Trump down a whole other rabbit hole where he found his loopholes to continue to apply tariffs. So one has to wonder what's in his back pocket. What's he going to go to if this Supreme Court ruling comes down against his birthright citizenship?
I do like, my favorite quote from the arguments was, I think when Trump's lawyer was trying to make the case that, or make the point rather, that the world has changed a lot over the course of time. And right now there are billions of people around the planet who are just a short air flight away from landing in the States and thus claiming birthright citizenship. And I think it was John Roberts who said, yeah, the world may have changed, but it's the same Constitution. Words in these arguments, constitutional arguments, words matter.
Yeah.
So Trump's lawyers now are arguing that parents need to be, air quotes here again, domiciled in the United States. The other side, meaning that they live here and that they're legally here, as opposed to illegal migrants. That's, I think, one of the cornerstones of their argument. The other side, the people challenging Trump's executive order, say Trump's lawyers are cherry picking. The 14th Amendment says flat out, if you are born, doesn't say anything about parents.
Or domicile.
Exactly. Look at the words of the 14th Amendment. Doesn't say anything about that. It says if you are born in the United States, you are an American citizen. That said, except for diplomats and their families, except for, as they point out, enemies of the United States who are occupying land in the United States, and also for a while it gets complicated. So there are some exceptions, but by and large, what the Constitution, what the 14th Amendment of the Constitution says is if you are born on the soil, under the flag, as they say, in the jurisdiction of, you are an American citizen.
And as we alluded to off the top, Katie, right, the U.S. is not alone in this, right? How do their rules around citizenship compare to other countries and perhaps our own?
Yeah, so when Donald Trump said that when he was signing the executive order complaining that America is the only place that sort of does this, that's not true. It is not necessarily the norm. So Canada, yes, Canada has birthright citizenship. And there are roughly just over 30 countries that have it as well. It's mostly countries in the Western Hemisphere, mostly North and South America. And then there are another 40 or so countries that have conditional birthright citizenship. A lot of places in Europe, in Southeast Asia, Australia, where if you meet certain conditions, you can qualify for citizenship, but it's not the same as what goes on in Canada, in the United States.
Two countries built on immigration, by the way.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
exactly.
the difference here. These colonial lands that said, hey, we want people from around the world to come here, and we're going to design our countries in order to accommodate that, right?
Founded on those, and we were talking before the podcast, but I mean, if you look at it, certainly over the last 100, 150 years, the flow of migration
has been to the West.
It has been to the West, so it makes sense that countries with birthright citizenship are in fact in the Western Hemisphere.
But just back to Trump's intent on this, though, and I think we have to say that Donald Trump and those who support this pushback would say, yeah, come to America, but do it the legal way. And that's part of the essence, I think, of what, in fairness to Donald Trump, is what he's saying here. Immigrants, come, right? But do it the legal way. Even other past immigrants that I've spoken with down doing stories on the border wall and such who oppose undocumented workers say, yeah, because it gives us all a bad name, right? Say these other former, one-time immigrants to America, do it the legal way, and that's a part of what all of this is about.
They cite I've done interviews with people who cite their experience of their family. Their argument is, my family had to wait. My family went through the process, and why is it everyone else is getting the same opportunity?
And then we're here legally, and our children, born here of parents who are here legally, are bona fide American citizens. Flip side to the opponents to this.
As you mentioned, Willy, many legal analysts anticipate that the Supreme Court justices will rule against the Trump administration in this case. But the court had a mixed response to Donald Trump pushing boundaries of his executive power. And that's something that you touched on, Paul. In this moment, what do we think about how this court is responding to this very volatile, very intense moment in American politics where norms and boundaries continue to be tested in an aggressive pace?
This is a conservative Supreme Court that, generally speaking, aligns to a certain degree with the president and with this administration. Of course, there are caveats. We saw, again, the ruling against Trump's tariff policies. That was a really important moment. And I think we're coming to the point where we're going to see whether that was the kind of precedent, whether that was the dam bursting and the air being sucked out of Trump's sails, or whether that was kind of an anomaly.
It is a mixed bag. Look, I mean, I think it's important to note that in most Supreme Court cases, there's broad agreement among the justices. Most Supreme Court cases don't make headlines. The ones that do is where we do see the ideological divide, probably more often than not. I think this is, as we were saying earlier, this is viewed as Trump's court. But I also think that the court probably gets more criticism on that than is warranted. And to the point you were making, Will, I mean, I think this court pushed back on the National Guard.
Yeah.
It pushed back on tariffs that I think we talked about on this podcast. We've seen Trump himself lash out, is maybe not the right way to put it, but lash out against Gorsuch.
Personally.
Directly and personally, and Coney Barrett, two of his appointees. And I think that is an indicator that things don't always go his way. So how has the court dealt with this? It has sided with him at times and has not. And I think that's what you would expect of a Supreme Court.
That's what courts do.
That's what courts do. Yeah, they look at the letter of the law, they decide. And you can say, yeah, you shouldn't have or you should have. But, like I say, it's been a mixed bag. And that's what it should be, perhaps.
I think that in this moment, the court system generally, not necessarily the Supreme Court, but in some instances, but the courts generally are the only thing stopping Donald Trump's agenda. People challenging, the Trump administration, suing the Trump administration, and that is part of the American
That's the
experience.
way it should be.
Yeah, that is part of the American experience.
That's back to sorry to jump in, Katie, but that is him testing executive power And the test, the decider of the test, I guess, in this case, and others, is the Supreme Court. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm. And it's very much that people that support Trump, and there are a lot of people that support Trump. I don't ever always just want to talk about the critics of the Trump administration. There is a lot of support out there for Donald Trump, even if those national polling numbers are low, and I acknowledge that they are low, but there is always a softer, quieter bounce of support. That's why Donald Trump does better in elections than he does in polls. And so even though the numbers right now, they are down, people do not like the war in Iran, they do not like some of his policies. At the same time, when you go out and talk to people in these conservative places, you do find that support, and it exists, and they still plan to vote for Republicans in November in the midterms. We'll see how that turns out. But for the people that do not like Donald Trump, the last sort of resort is the legal system to challenge those things, even though the Trump administration has lost a number of cases or decisions did not go their way. People that are critical of Trump do not look at the Supreme Court in this moment and have a lot of faith, because it is his court. And look at past decisions. Look at the overturning of Roe v. Wade and how that has changed life in America and women having access to abortion, those kinds of things. So even if the courts, it is a mixed bag with the courts in terms of what they're doing and what they're not doing, and that's kind of the way it is. There's a lot of people in America who are critical of the Trump administration, look at the court, and don't have a lot of hope in this moment.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think also this conversation has made me realize, this is a very binary conversation, the executive versus the judicial branch. It shows me kind of how irrelevant
Congress
has
become.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Good point.
We're in a weird spot right now.
It really
with that.
is.
It's super weird.
The maker of laws, in theory. Yeah.
All right. Ending on a point where we say super weird. That seems appropriate for today's conversation. We do have a question from the audience. Sean Clement, who is wondering about the journalists and the sources we would recommend beyond, of course, the CBC. So he asks, who are the reporters you admire and believe are worth following?
My answer, I hate to say it, is everything. And it's not just who, but the what. I mean, one day I'll start reading fiction again. But for now, it's just everything, man. New York Times, Axios, The Atlantic. I read the New York Post. If you want to know what's going on, read the New York Post, right? I watch ABC News every day, NBC Nightly News. I listen to the Daily. I watch Fox News. To your point earlier,
you have to.
It's exactly. I read Paul Krugman, Ezra Klein, SCOTUS blog per today's
Big
episode.
Big
you want to know about the Supreme Court of the United States? Read SCOTUS blog. It's so good. David Frum, I like a lot. I like his stuff.
Canadian?
Yeah, exactly. It just never ends. And one of the great pleasures of being down here in this job is to engage with and just be allowed, in a sense, the time to read some of the amazing journalism that goes on down here. But I've got a long list, but that's some of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think our jobs is to consume as much American media as possible. So absolutely, I wake up in the morning, for me, the New York Times, the gold standard. But of course, I watch CNN, NBC, CBS, Fox News.
Vox
Explainers are great. From a kind of the journalists that I follow, obviously I'm especially interested in the Middle East and U.S. foreign policy. Barak Ravid seems to have a direct line to the White House, the administration. He is a must follow.
Maggie Haberman. How would not mention
she's
her?
great. Also, people that cover the State Department with me, John Hudson from the Washington Post, Ed Wong from the New York Times. Really, this is a country full of very talented journalists.
Katie, someone we haven't said.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna present a platform. So in Canada, because of the online news challenges or bans or protests of the legislation, a lot of Canadians are not getting news on social media. And I would argue that in this modern day and age, yes, I do all the things that we're all supposed to do. I read the New York Times every day. I do all these things every single day before my work day starts, technically. And but a place that I do rely on, where I often see things before they hit the mainstream media, is through Instagram and TikTok, but always with a critical eye. You see something and then you go and try and verify it. I often get wind of things before they're picked up by whatever news outlet it is, and I'll say, this looks like something, and then before, like, you sort of like present it to like your assignment editor to say, this is something that I think maybe we should pursue, or have you seen this? Now, that said, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation. Do not believe everything you see on the internet. I trust mainstream news outlets. I know a lot of people in this moment don't do that, and that is the challenge for us as journalists, is to try and find a way to build that trust back, because it's been attacked and from all kinds of sides, and but I really keep my eye on what's going on in social media and look for trends, look for new things, and try and find the things that hey, that might be something. Sometimes it's not, but that's really how I sort of go about that.
One non-political one, Dan Rather's The Big Interview. Find. He sat down with Geddy Lee. It's worth it. I'm telling you, it's fantastic. It's like Dan Rather sitting across from Geddy Lee and talking about.
What if I tell
stuff.
you I don't like Rush? Is that like, am I gonna lose my
passport?
Canadian
Where's your
citizenship?
passport?
At least
Okay, Sean, thank you for that question.
fly by night. Yeah.
Please continue, Paul.
If you have something you'd like to ask or feedback about what you're hearing, send an email to WashingtonPod, all one word, at CBC.ca. That's WashingtonPod at CBC.ca, or leave a comment for us on Spotify.
And if you like what you're hearing, spread the word, tell a friend about this podcast, and please follow us on your favorite podcasting app.
One more thing before we go today. Someone left a comment for us on Spotify asking about the team behind the show. And we don't normally do credits, but we're making an exception this week because someone who played a critical role in getting this podcast into the world is leaving us.
Our Washington Bureau's senior producer, the unsurpassed and amazing Jen Barr, is heading home to a new assignment in Canada. We wanted to thank her for all the incredible work she's done leading our crew here, and for doing many things behind the scenes that no one gets to see or hear, but that are so vital into making this podcast a success. Thank you, Jen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jen. And while we're at it, we wanted to name just a few other folks who make this happen every week. Patrick Ferguson, who we're all looking at behind the window, I guess, really presses the buttons and makes this all work. He helped build this incredible space
Studio
that we
that
are
we're in.
Sitting in.
Literally built it from the ground up.
With his bare hands.
Yeah.
With his bare hands.
A true Renaissance man, along with colleagues.
Ian McDonald.
Big shout out to Ian. Also want to say thank you to Jason Lothers and Jason Burles, who kind of act as Patrick when, on the rare occasion, Patrick can't be here.
And on the production side, Shannon Higgins, Kristen Nelson, Carla Hilton, and our sound designer, Dave Modi. Thanks to Louis Blouin and Caitlin Crockard for pinch hitting when others are away. And to Matthew Lazen Ryder, who helped pilot the show.
And while we're doing credits, thanks as well to our video digital team, including Sanisha Yolich, Emma Smith, and Philip Drost. And of course, thanks to all the assignment producers, managers, and folks who make this podcast happen week after week, especially Karen Burgess.
Yes. Okay. Well, that is all for today. And it's going to be a while, I think, before we're all three in the same room over the course of the summer. So
the show will go on.
The show, show's going to continue on. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Will.
Bye. Thanks, Katie.